What if I told you that secret documents leaked from the Vatican are confirming something that many have always feared? Could the end times have already begun? Imagine for a moment that the dark corridors of the Vatican's secret library, which for centuries hid forbidden truths, can no longer hold their secret. Ancient texts, hidden prophecies, forbidden manuscripts that speak directly about the apocalypse, and all of this coming to light amidst a disturbing silence. These leaked documents are not just dusty pieces of paper. They carry revelations that could shake the foundations of the Christian faith. What the Vatican always feared the world would discover is now circulating clandestinely, and the question that remains unanswered: what exactly has the Vatican tried to hide from us all these centuries? The mystery of the Vatican's secret library has always fueled conspiracy theories, but now, more than ever, the evidence is beginning to reveal itself. Prohibited texts describing clear signs of the end times, hidden prophecies that speak of a great apostasy, devastating natural disasters, and a spiritual collapse that is already underway. All of this was kept, protected under lock and key, under the watchful eyes of those who swore to defend these secrets at any cost. Why would the Vatican classify such important documents as top secret? What interest would the Church have in hiding these messages from the public? Perhaps because, if the truth came out, millions of believers around the world would question everything they believe. Perhaps because admitting the existence of these records would be recognizing that time is, in fact, running out. We are talking about revelations that not only threaten the official history of the Church, but that could change the course of human history. Secrets so dangerous that the simple act of mentioning them was considered heresy in other times. But today, faced with these leaks, what was forbidden now begins to be exposed. If you think you've heard everything about the Vatican's secrets, brace yourself, because what comes next goes far beyond anything you imagined. And in the face of such profound and disturbing revelations, it is impossible not to reflect on our faith, on what is really to come. If these leaked Vatican documents are right, if they truly point to the end times, we need to strengthen ourselves spiritually more than ever. We need to unite in prayer, cry out for discernment, and seek divine protection in the face of the forces that, for centuries, have tried to hide the truth from humanity. Therefore, I want to invite you now to leave your prayer request here in the comments. Write your name, your intention, or just say, "I accept the truth." And let's create a powerful chain of faith and intercession. Even in the face of the greatest hidden secrets, God remains the only one capable of illuminating our paths and strengthening our hearts. Every prayer left here will be a cry of resistance against deception, against the darkness that has tried, for so long, to silence these truths. So don't hesitate. Leave your prayer request and also strengthen the faith of thousands of people who will read and join you in this purpose. And if this video has already moved you, if what we are revealing makes sense deep down in your soul, I ask that you leave your like, because it shows that you are awakening to something greater. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations, because what we're going to bring will shake everything you think about the history of faith, the behind the scenes of the Vatican, and humanity's best-kept mysteries. Don't be left out of this journey. Leave your like, your prayer comment, and subscribe now, because what comes next will shake your deepest certainties. Recently, unexpected leaks began to circulate in restricted circles of independent scholars and researchers, bringing to light secret documents that had supposedly been locked away for centuries in the deepest archives of the Vatican's secret library. These ancient papers, forbidden manuscripts, and hidden texts describe something few have dared to even imagine: a series of prophecies directly related to the apocalypse, kept from the public eye for generations. These secret Vatican documents speak of signs, events, and transformations that were already underway in the modern world, but that were deliberately hidden so as not to generate panic, revolt, or perhaps even to maintain power and control over the narrative of faith. The existence of hidden prophecies that predict wars, global crises, natural disasters, spiritual decay, and the great apostasy is something that has always been treated as a conspiracy theory by many. But now, with these leaks, we're starting to see that perhaps the truth was even scarier than any theory could have predicted. Have you ever stopped to think about why the Vatican has one of the largest collections of banned texts in the world, many of which have never been revealed to the public? Why were certain books removed from the Bible? Why is the secret library protected like a fortress, inaccessible even to renowned scholars? It's not just a question of history or religion. We're talking about information that could completely change the way we understand our past, our present, and our future. Within these manuscripts are records of the time of the end, symbolic descriptions of cataclysms, the corruption
of religious institutions, the emergence of false spiritual leaders, and the obscuring of truth. Many of these events, described in almost coded language, disturbingly coincide with what we are currently witnessing. The moral degradation, the fragmentation of faith, the wars and rumors of wars, the extreme natural phenomena, all of this had already been predicted, but kept secret by the Vatican. It is no coincidence that the very term, end times, is so carefully avoided in the Church's
official pronouncements. Talking about it openly would mean opening the door to questions that cannot be easily answered. It would mean admitting that perhaps much of what we have been taught needs to be re-evaluated in the light of revelations that, until now, have remained hidden in the shadows. The hidden prophecies that emerge from these leaked documents are not just vague messages. They contain impressive details, symbolic dates, global political movements, the weakening of authentic spirituality, and even the preparation for the arrival of a world leader who would present himself as a savior, but who, in reality, would bring great destruction. Imagine having in your hands ancient texts that describe all of this, written long before the events began to happen. Imagine realizing it was all there, hidden beneath layers of secrecy and power. The question that echoes now is, why did the Vatican keep all this secret? Why didn't they warn humanity about the signs of the end? Perhaps because revealing these truths meant losing control. Perhaps because admitting the existence of these hidden prophecies would call into question the entire structure of authority and faith that has been carefully built over the centuries. What if it is true that certain popes throughout history have had privileged access to these revelations? If they knew that the world's clock was already counting down? Were decisions made behind the scenes to delay, hide, or even manipulate what the people knew? Could it be that, in the name of stability, politics, or fear of chaos, they preferred to keep this information under lock and key, denying humanity the chance to truly prepare? These questions need to be asked, because now, with the leaks, the veil that covered these Vatican secrets is beginning to tear. And as more excerpts from these secret documents are released, the clearer it becomes that much was being hidden not only from the general public, but from all those who have always sought the truth with sincerity and faith. We're not just talking about apocryphal manuscripts or obscure theories. We are talking about reports, prophecies, and documents with historical authenticity, cited in sources that have stood the test of time, and that, for some very powerful reason, were never included in the official narrative. We are talking about truths that, if fully revealed, would have the potential to redefine everything. The history of the Church, our perception of God, our understanding of the end times. And the question that remains for each of us is, are we ready to face this truth? Are we willing to look beyond what we have been taught and seek what has really been hidden? Or will we continue to accept the official versions without question? While you're thinking about this, I ask you one thing. Comment below one word that summarizes your feeling about everything that is being revealed. It could be awakening, truth, courage, or even fear. Choose the word that best represents how you feel right now and share it with our community. Your comment will help create a chain of reflection and awakening that goes far beyond this video. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. What comes next will delve even deeper into what was revealed and expose even darker secrets that the Vatican tried to bury forever. As new excerpts from the leaked documents began to be translated and studied by independent experts, something even more disturbing came to light. It was not just ancient texts warning about the apocalypse in a symbolic way, as so many had already speculated. No, what these forbidden manuscripts described was something much more accurate, frighteningly detailed, and alarmingly current. Clear predictions of catastrophic events, destruction on a global scale, and the rise of forces that have worked to obscure humanity's spiritual truth. Among the forgotten and carefully sealed pages, stories emerge that describe a series of events that would serve as markers of the beginning of the end, And the most shocking thing, these signs were described with an accuracy that goes beyond what could simply be a mystical interpretation. We are talking about specific descriptions of intensified natural disasters, global pandemics that would collapse the social system, devastating economic crises, and an unprecedented weakening of faith in religious institutions. Within these secret Vatican documents, some hidden codes were left, written in ancient languages, using ciphers that require in-depth knowledge to decipher. These codes are not random. They point to specific dates that, according to occult interpretations, represent critical moments in the history of humanity. One of these codes refers to a period that many scholars have already begun to call the cycle of great purification, indicating that the beginning of the end of times had already begun at the beginning of the 21st century, in a discrete but irreversible way. These dates do not appear as obvious numbers, but rather encoded in biblical cross-references, esoteric symbols, and allusions to ancient constellations, as if the authors of these texts wanted to leave clues only to those with eyes trained to see. According to these studies, 2025 would be one of the most symbolic years cited, not as an instantaneous end, but as the moment in which the transformation becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, paving the way for the final events predicted in the prophecies. It is disturbing to realize that recent global movements, armed conflicts, rising hunger, environmental deterioration, and the growing division between nations and peoples coincide almost to the millimeter with the descriptions in these manuscripts. The Vatican, according to persistent rumors, had known this information for centuries and chose to keep it locked away to protect world balance, or perhaps to protect itself. The documents also speak of the rise of a new world leadership, which would present itself as a savior in a time of widespread despair. This figure would be extremely charismatic, promising peace and prosperity, but between the lines of occult prophecies, it would be described as the greatest deception in the history of humanity, the incarnation of apostasy, and the definitive sign that humanity's time was running out. The symbolism in the texts is intense. They speak of an uncrowned throne rising among the people, of a false light that would seduce even the chosen, of a renewed temple that would bring a new worship, unlike anything we know today. Every detail, carefully described, leads us to understand that the Vatican's secrets about the end times were never just legends or superstitions, but parts of a great puzzle that is now beginning to come together before our eyes. Hidden codes that have not yet been completely deciphered also mention a second darkness, a period of spiritual confusion so intense that even religious leaders would be deceived, leading multitudes to perdition. This second darkness would be the harbinger of the Great Schism, a rupture within the Church itself, dividing it into irreconcilable factions, each proclaiming to be the holder of the truth. Being faced with this information is like holding in your hands a forbidden key, one that opens a door to an understanding so deep and disturbing that many would prefer to simply ignore it. But the truth, once known, can never be forgotten, and that is exactly what these leaked documents are doing, tearing away the veil that for centuries covered the eyes of humanity, exposing the insides of a secret that could forever change everything we know about the history of the Church and about our own destiny. Some interpretations also suggest that certain secret rituals practiced over the centuries by inner circles of the Church were intended to try to delay the unfolding of these prophecies, a desperate attempt to gain more time, even knowing that the wheel of destiny had already begun to turn. But not everyone agrees. Other scholars believe that the Vatican did not try to prevent what was coming, but merely prepared itself to survive the Great Transformation. The fact is that whether we like it or not, these prohibited documents reveal that the beginning of the end is not something distant or hypothetical. It is real, it is now, and its effects can already be felt in all parts of the world. Hidden prophecies speak of a new world order, unprecedented religious persecution, and a great ordeal that will separate the true believers from those who only pretend to believe. Within the recently leaked secret documents, there is something even more disturbing than dates and prophecies, a precise list of signs that would be discreetly manifesting over time. ignored by most and deliberately hidden by religious authorities. These signs, described in great detail in the Vatican's forbidden texts, have been called harbingers of the end. And they are not symbolic. They are concrete, visible, palpable events, happening right before our eyes. The first major sign mentioned in these documents is the skyrocketing increase in natural disasters. Earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, extreme droughts, devastating floods, all described as convulsions of the earth, reactions to an invisible spiritual corruption spreading unchecked. The texts speak of nature as a silent witness, unable to withstand the moral degradation of humanity, responding with increasing fury in the form of catastrophes that surpass human understanding. Apocryphal reports, never before released, cite ancient records from the Vatican's secret library, in which it is mentioned that when waters invade lands that have always been dry, and fire arises from the ground without warning, humanity should know that the time of the Great Judgment is approaching. Interestingly, phenomena such as volcanoes erupting in dormant regions, seas advancing over entire cities, and the accelerated melting of glaciers are already part of the headlines we see every day. But few connect these facts to the prophecies that, until now, have been hidden in dark archives under the vaults of the Vatican. The second crucial sign, and perhaps the most painful for those who keep the faith alive, is the apostasy within the Church itself. The documents reveal that the end of times would be preceded by internal corruption, a silent infiltration that would transform the house of God into a theater of scandals, heresies, and division. And, looking at the current panorama, how many scandals involving senior members of the Church have come to light in recent years? How many centuries-old doctrines have been relativized or abandoned? How many times has the truth been shaped to please the world instead of being firmly defended? The Vatican's secret texts warn that at the end of time, faith would become lukewarm, true doctrine would be despised, and many religious leaders would give more importance to power and politics than to the salvation of souls. There will be bishops against bishops, priests against priests, says one of the recently translated lines, echoing an internal division we see deepening every year. This is not mere coincidence. According to the leaked documents, this widespread apostasy is one of the last major signs before the Great Purification, and perhaps most fascinating, and at the same time most fearsome, are the celestial signs mentioned in the forbidden manuscripts: shooting stars out of season, unforeseen eclipses, strange light signals in the sky, inexplicable phenomena that would make men and women fill with fear. In several passages, the texts speak of moons dyed in blood and suns that are darkened, events that would be visible signs for those who still have eyes to see. Recently, it is not uncommon to see news about anomalous astronomical phenomena, and although science offers technical explanations for many of them, the coincidence of their frequency with the descriptions of these prohibited documents is, to say the least, unsettling. The Vatican, with its centuries-old power to control spiritual information, knew all this. It kept ancient celestial maps, records of astronomical phenomena linked to major historical events, and documents of hidden prophecies that warned of the great sign in the heavens that would precede the final turning point in human history. However, this information was systematically hidden. The question that should echo in your mind is, why? Why hide from humanity that the heavens themselves would cry out and give visible signs of the approaching end? Even more disturbing is the excerpt from a 13th century manuscript found among the secret archives, which speaks of the appearance of a burning object in the sky coming from the east, which would herald the collapse of earthly kingdoms. Today, independent astronomers warn about approaches to celestial bodies, asteroids and comets, but always minimizing the risks to the population. Coincidence? Or is it part of a global effort to avoid panic, as the Vatican itself has done for centuries? These secret and forbidden documents show us that the time for great revelations has already begun. The signs are everywhere, on earth, in the church, and in heaven. But the majority still don't see it, or refuse to see it. Disasters are attributed to chance. Apostasy is called modernization. Celestial signs are classified as simple astronomical phenomena, and so we walk, without realizing it, directly towards the total fulfillment of the prophecies that the Vatican tried to hide from us. Now, I want you, who have come this far with me on this journey of revelations, to think about everything we said. Look around you. Do you see the signs? Do you feel like something much bigger is unfolding, silently, while the world insists on remaining asleep? If you also notice these signs, I want to make a special invitation to you. Comment below using a word that represents your perception now. It could be awakening, warning, signs, courage, or even preparation. Choose the word that best reflects what you feel and share. This exchange between us is much more than comments. It is the formation of an awakened community, ready to seek the truth, even if it has been hidden in the depths of history, under the guard of Vatican secrets. And believe me, in the next step of our investigation, the revelations will be even more shocking. As we delve even deeper into this sea of mysteries and forbidden documents, names emerge of scholars, independent researchers, and even former members of the Church who claim, with impressive courage, to have had access, albeit limited, to fragments of these manuscripts hidden by the Vatican. Their stories, filled with tension and danger, paint a dark portrait of an institution that for centuries has fought a silent battle to keep the truth out of the eyes of the world. Among the most cited scholars is the renowned Italian researcher Dr. Marco Albini, a former Vatican academic who, according to his own accounts, worked within the halls of the secret library in the 1980s. Albini claims that, during his time in service, he had access to documents that openly mentioned the existence of an apocalyptic timeline, kept only for the highest echelons of the Church. In interviews given years after his departure from the institution, he described secret astronomical maps, encrypted letters between popes, and detailed reports of supernatural phenomena observed in different historical periods, always linked to the theory of the end of times. Another name worth mentioning is Anna Bianchi, a translator and paleographer who was hired to work on medieval manuscripts sealed in the Vatican archives. In 2009, shortly before she mysteriously disappeared from public life, Anna published coded excerpts on academic forums, suggesting that she had found warning texts about a great spiritual rupture that would devastate the Church in the third millennium. Many believe that Anna Bianchi found information so sensitive that she was forced to remain silent forever. The last messages he left spoke of signs in the stars and the dissolution of true faith. We cannot fail to mention the case of Father Domenico Salvatore, a former priest who, after years of serving in administrative positions at the Vatican, broke his silence and anonymously published a series of documents that would come to be known as the Salvatore Letters. In them, he describes secret meetings where senior members of the Church discussed progress in fulfilling prophecies and devised strategies to mask the signs of the end under the appearance of inevitable natural or political events. In one of the most striking passages, he writes, "The signs are there for all to see, but the truth must be diluted, or panic will destroy what took centuries to build." These reports are not isolated cases. Around the world, dozens of independent researchers, including Dr. Alan Roberts and Maria Gonzalez, claim to have gathered circumstantial evidence that the Vatican not only has documents about the end times, but also promoted internal campaigns to discredit anyone who dared to bring this information to light. Maria, a Mexican historian specializing in ancient texts, revealed that, during supervised visits to the secret library, she noticed the existence of entire sections omitted from the official catalogues with reference to celestial events and irreversible changes in the course of human history. Interestingly, all of these individuals share something in common. After their testimonies or revelations, their lives changed radically. Some mysteriously disappeared, others were discredited by the media, and still others faced accusations that removed them from academic life. It is as if an invisible but immensely powerful force acts behind the scenes to erase any trace of the truth. This leads us to reflect. If these prohibited documents were not so important, why all this effort to silence those who dare to talk about them? Some secret interviews, carried out on condition of anonymity and published on alternative research sites, talk about documents entitled The Lost Hours, The Testament of the Last Vigil, and The Chronicle of Signs. These texts, according to reports, describe not only the physical signs of the end, but also drastic spiritual changes that would affect even the internal structures of the church. There would be an appointed time for the full revelation of the truth, but that time would be systematically postponed by the forces that still control information within the walls of the Vatican. Furthermore, scholars such as Federico Galvez, former professor of history of religions in Spain, report that hidden manuscripts make reference to a great sound coming from the sky, a global event that would shake the entire world, and that would be the final call for the conversion of souls before the cycle closed forever. Galvez also mentions an impressive prediction. There will be light where there should be darkness, and darkness where there should be light. A clear allusion to inverted phenomena that would confuse even the wisest. All these fragments, these small pieces of a forbidden puzzle, lead us to one inevitable conclusion. The truth is being hidden in a systematic and planned way. The secrets of the Vatican are much deeper than any theory has ever dared to imagine. The existence of secret documents that speak openly about the end times, about celestial signs, about apostasy, about natural disasters, is no longer a matter of opinion. It is a matter of evidence being gathered, of courageous testimonies being given at the cost of one's own life. Now, if everything these scholars, independent researchers, and former members of the Church have revealed is false, if these secret Vatican documents are nothing more than fantasies, a question arises that simply cannot be ignored. Why does the Vatican try so hard to deny, silence, and cover up any public discussion on these topics? If it really was just baseless speculation, wouldn't it be easier to just ignore it? But no. The Vatican's reaction to these leaks, these hidden prophecies and banned texts, reveals something much deeper and disturbing. Over the years, each time a prohibited document was mentioned, each time a new complaint about the secret archives emerged, the Church's official stance was always the same, a mix of public denial and strategic silence. In a very calculated manner, spokespeople for the Holy See issued vague statements, categorically denying the existence of compromising documents, or stating that there are no relevant records that confirm such allegations. Cold words, carefully chosen to ward off curiosity without giving clear explanations. In other situations, when pressured, they resorted to the old strategy of claiming falsehood. They accused researchers of misinterpretation, attributed the reports to baseless conspiracy theories, and discredited testimony as being the result of personal mistakes or seeking notoriety. But what is most impressive is that, even with all the media apparatus available to the Church, there was rarely a detailed refutation. Rarely has anyone at high level agreed to open the files, show the evidence, or deny the allegations point by point. This programmed silence, these rehearsed denials, speak much more than any words could say. Because after all, if secret documents didn't exist, if there really weren't hidden prophecies about the end times hidden in the depths of the Vatican's secret library, why all this concern about debunking them? Why the visible fear that information will leak and reach the public? Behind the scenes, independent journalists covering the Vatican report constant pressure to avoid certain topics. Many speak of blacklists of prohibited subjects, internal investigations to identify document leakers, and veiled threats made to employees and religious people who show curiosity in accessing restricted areas. There are stories about invited researchers abandoning projects after they start asking too many inconvenient questions. There are reports of documents mysteriously disappearing from university libraries. There is a pattern that is repeated everywhere: control of information, and above all, fear that the truth will come to light. We cannot ignore the fact that the Vatican Secret Library, despite its suggestive name, is in practice one of the most restricted and inaccessible archives in the world. Only a tiny number of carefully selected scholars are allowed to access part of the collection, and even then under surveillance and with strong restrictions. What do they hide there? What types of prohibited documents are kept away from the public? How many truths about ancient prophecies, apocalyptic signs, and celestial events are sealed behind those walls? When faced with direct questions about topics such as the end times, the apocalypse, or occult prophecies that are said to be hidden in secret archives, church leaders prefer a rehearsed response. These matters are baseless, and discussing them is fomenting fear and misinformation. But this response, instead of reassuring, only raises even more suspicions. Because those who shouldn't don't fear. Those who only keep historical documents without consequences open the door to scrutiny, don't build walls, does not threaten investigators, it does not silence its own members. And so, with each new leak, each new report, the Vatican reacts in the same way. A wall of silence, denials, and discrediting the messengers. A behavior that, in itself, is the biggest confirmation that something very big is being hidden. Now, I want to hear from you who are here following this.
In-depth investigation. Given all of this that we are revealing, what do you believe the Vatican is really hiding? Leave a word in the comments that defines your feeling at this moment. It could be mystery, silence, concealment, or even truth revealed. Choose the word that most represents what is beating inside you right now and share it. Your participation is essential for more people to wake up to what is really happening behind the scenes of history. If these documents are authentic, humanity would be living its last chapters without even realizing it. And you? Are you ready? This question echoes like a whisper from the ancient walls of the Vatican's secret library, like a muffled warning that even without being officially recognized, screams to those who dare to listen. If the hidden prophecies, if the signs silently described in the forbidden texts are real, then we are living through a unique moment in human history. A moment that has been predicted, coded, and carefully hidden from ordinary eyes. The leaked documents make it clear that the end times would not come with a single explosive event, but rather as a sequence of subtle and gradual transformations. A slow spiritual decay, a numbness of human consciousness, a collective blindness in the face of clear signs, unusual astronomical phenomena, intensified natural disasters, the internal division of the Church, the emergence of false doctrines, the weakening of true faith, all described not as distant possibilities, but as inevitable steps that mark the path to the final outcome. If we carefully observe the world around us, don't we already see these marks engraved in our reality? The increase in violence, moral degradation, religious skepticism growing, faith becoming increasingly rare. The apostasy, predicted in the Vatican's secret manuscripts, advances silently like a shadow that creeps among the ruins of what was once considered sacred. And while many laugh at the idea that we are living in the end times, others, silently, recognize that the invisible clock of history seems to be approaching its final chime. The scariest thing about all this is not the possibility of the end itself, but the fact that it would happen without most even realizing it. Humanity, immersed in its routine, deluded by promises of progress, and distracted by artificial crises, would not notice the signs until it was too late. This is the great tragedy predicted in the secret documents. Voluntary ignorance, the spiritual sleep that would prevent millions from preparing themselves while there is still time. And if you think the Vatican would position itself as a guardian of the truth in this scenario, the evidence points to the opposite. By hiding this information, by denying the existence of the signs, by silencing those who dare to speak, the institutionalized church itself ends up playing a crucial role in fulfilling the prophecies. An institution that should guide its faithful towards the light, but which, by hiding the warnings, keeps them in the dark. These forbidden manuscripts speak of an inner preparation, of constant vigilance, of a faith that does not bow before the pressures of the modern world. They speak of a small group of people, described as the Watchers, who would recognize the signs and stand firm, even while everything around them seemed to be falling apart. It is these people who, by keeping the flame of truth alive, would play an essential role in the divine plan hidden beneath the veils of human history. The question that remains is inevitable. Are you able to recognize the signs? Can you see that what we are seeing, this combination of social, religious, spiritual, and natural crises, is not mere chance?
If these leaked documents really are authentic, we are closer to the end than we ever dared to imagine. And unlike Hollywood versions that have always shown the apocalypse as something blatant and spectacular, the reality described in the EE texts is cold, silent, and gradual, an invisible collapse that gradually swallows everything. The fact that we are here, talking about this, is already a sign that something is awakening within us, an uncomfortable feeling that there is more than we have been told. An intuition that the forbidden prophecies hidden in the Vatican catacombs are more than simple religious legends. These are maps to the end. And what each of us does with this information is what really matters. If you've stayed with me this far, it's because you're part of a very special group, those who are truly in search of the truth. And for those of you who made it to the end of this video, I want to make an important request. Subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, because we're going to delve even deeper into the Vatican's hidden secrets, forbidden prophecies and truths that few dare reveal. And so I know that you are one of those who is awake. Leave the word here in the comments, "I awakened." This will show that you not only watched until the end, but that you are ready to follow this journey of discovery with me. Don't forget to leave your like as well. It is essential for this message to reach more people who, like you, feel that there is something much bigger happening behind the scenes of the story. And now don't stop here. The next video is already appearing on your screen. Click on it, and come continue unraveling with me the mysteries that have been hidden from us for centuries. See you there!